There you go. September 18th, 2024, it's a regular board meeting. Please rise and join me with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the states, one nation, under indivisible. Thank you so much. Guys, if you need to, there's chairs in my office, you can roll out. Roll call when you're ready.
Nielsen?
Here.
Marble?
Maybe. No, I'm
Northway?
Present.
Ferris?
here.
Van Meter here.
We're having trouble with picking up voices and enough people in the audience with our owl machine. So we want you to, Leroy, we want you to speak very loudly when you're called on and all that. And try not to talk amongst yourselves, even though this is some hot topics, so we'll be touching on. And then the other thing is that we are going to get a microphone that we can pass around, try to get a little bit better for our generation. Yeah. Okay, so we have the agenda in front of us. I am going to amend the agenda a little bit. Right after airport, I'm going to add board of review. We're just going to quickly nominate somebody for the board of review. And the next double is enforcement. It's fine. What's the next thing? I think we're taking off of planning and zoning. You can cross out the ZBA and planning commission resignations and appointments. We're postponing that a month. So with those corrections, any other corrections?
The Cherry Capital Communications.
Oh, that's the one. Yes. After buildings and grounds, add CCC for Cherry Capital Communications. It's their update. With those three corrections, I think are three, I move that we accept the agenda as presented. I second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next one is conflict of interest. Anyone have it to declare?
I will later on. I think my husband's name is gonna come up for enforcement officer. And while I can speak to working with him in his role as lieutenant in chief of law enforcement, I probably shouldn't vote on it.
Okay. Next we have minutes. I just have two spelling errors. I think Abby's name is spelled with an IE. Where's Abby? That is page 7. The second to last bullet. And then just above it, Ellen, we just pushed the K instead of the H.
Yeah.
Okay. Is Ellen here today? I don't think she is. So any other corrections to the minutes? I move that we accept the minutes as presented with those two spelling errors corrected. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed.
Great
Thank
job.
Next is correspondence. We are always emphasizing that when it comes to camp nearby, we are always getting together a compendium because people write us. And anytime you guys want to see that, I try to post it on the website and so forth and keep it up to date. That is not a secret. If they write to us, it's transparent and it's able for anybody in the public to see. And the same thing goes for the short-term rentals, and we'll be getting to that a little bit later. County Commissioner.
Thank you. I'll come up here like you had me do before.
Yes.
You're your owl. I have submitted my report to the board and I understand it will be posted on the website, so you'll have it. The only thing I really wanted to mention, unless you have questions, is at the MAC Environmental Regulatory conference or committee that I attend for the multiple counties. They gave a report through Michigan Green Community where you can take a survey and get information on water protection, abatement, that sort of thing. So I just want to draw attention to that. Amy, do you want me to mention?
Iron Man, why don't you? Because I think
Okay.
Mike will follow up on that.
Okay, 7 October at 5:30 PM. There will be a public hearing for Ironman. And it-
5:15. Yeah,
Oh,
5:15.
5:15. Thank you for that. And it is going to be at the theater.
Oh, super.
Other than that,
Garden theater.
the Garden Theater, yes.
And anybody else has questions? October 7th at 5:15.
You should have received an email today from Chris Ward Spence regarding an invitation directly for all of your board members
Isn't that nice? Thank you.
to attend, as well as Lake, Gilmore, Albert.
I thank you, Brady, for
Very good.
forcing that issue. That's nice.
Yes, I appreciate that too. And unless there are other questions, nice and brief.
Cool. Thank you very
Got
much.
lots of information.
And then our favorite fire chief is up next.
Hello, everyone. You all got a copy of my report. Anybody have any questions on that? Mine's gonna be short and sweet too. I'll give you an update of where we're at. We've had 10 EMS runs so far in September for Crystal Lake Township and 2 fire runs. A total this year of combined fire runs and EMS runs for Crystal Lake Township of 312 for Ransom Park. And,
Is my emergency call to you last week in there?
no, because that wasn't a 911 call. When it's called, it goes, gets guard call, but we took care of it.
Yes. I had somebody walk in here and said there's a flood of a river coming out of your storage building at the cemetery across the street. And I called 4 plumbers, not one of them could send anybody. The guy who's helping me, yeah, he said, call the fire department.
Oh, we fixed it.
Yep, he came running. Good job.
No other questions?
Tough one with those 3 Walter. I can't.
Yeah, free water. Yeah.
And I like the talk therapy that you were saying.
Yeah.
Talking about it
We're
helps.
talking, we work it on, and that's how we do it. And we also, the state does have a program, but we see, if I see trending issues, then the state does have help that I can send them to a next level to talk to somebody at the Bureau of Fire Service that hasn't, somebody that works with that.
You know what we're talking about, 3 deaths in the water. It's been a tough for the workers. Yep. Thank you very much, Mike. Are you gonna address Ironman at all, or just urge people to come to the meeting?
Just go to the meeting, it's a public meeting, so.
Yeah.
What I can do.
Great, thanks. Next thing we have is public comment. If you would like to say something at this point, you're very welcome to. If it's about the short-term rentals, you might want to wait and put all those together when we get down to short-term rentals, okay? So, yes.
Thank you. I'm Lindy Evans. I'm a resident of Blaine Township. I'm an employee of State Savings Bank and I'm on the board of directors for the Benson County Chamber of Commerce. I'm here to invite all of you to the upcoming municipal mingle that's being held this coming Monday from 3 to 5 at the Oliver Arts Center. You'll have an opportunity to speak with all of your elected officials. And this event is open to Blaine Township, Crystal Lake, Gilmore Lake, Village of Alberta, City of Frankfort, County Commission Districts 2, 3, 7, and State House District 104. So that's this coming Monday, starting at 3 and it ends at 5 at the Oliver Arts Center. And the last thing I have to ask you about is coming to the candidates breakfast. That's being held at Crystal Mountain next Friday on September 27th. It starts at 9, ends at noon, and you can go online to the Benson County Chamber of Commerce to register for that event. You can also register for the municipal mingles event, or you can just show up at the municipal mingles event. That was a free event. The candidates breakfast does have a fee. So that's it.
Are you singing for us?
No. I'm not, but thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
He has a question for you.
So on Monday, are the candidates actually making any presentations or you just walk up and talk?
You pretty much just walk up and talk to them. It's a very casual opportunity to mingle and rub elbows and ask your own personal questions. Any other questions?
I'm curious why you got it at 3 to 5 instead of staying later.
Yeah, I think there were conflicts with different times and other events going on, and so that seemed to be the time that worked out. Yeah. So All of the municipal meetings that are being held in the county are being held from 3 to 5. The first one was over at Lake Ann, it was a very successful event. And we have this one, and there will be one in Beulah, one in Thompsonville, or 30 minutes, so. Or the next, yeah.
Are these, local, election candidates or is it state level? Is it-
Yes, and at the same time. Any other questions?
Any other public comment? Thank you, Lindy.
You're welcome.
There's one in the back.
Andy?
I just want to introduce myself. I know most of you in the room. I'm Andy Miller. I'm running for county commissioner. So I will be at the bingo on Monday. So, and I haven't spent as much time in Crystal Lake Township coming to the meetings because I'm still active on other boards. At the exact same time right now as the Point Beckley Lighthouse Board, I've been on that. I'm on the Frankfort Housing Commission and I'm on the Benson County EDC. So, and that's how we got broadband and all these great things here in our county. But anyway, I'd love to meet you on Monday and if not, you can talk to me afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Joe?
Yeah, I have questions about the hiring of the officers. Should we that?
No, you should say it now.
All right. Maybe this has been covered before, but, I was curious about the $70 an hour rate, how that was determined. I know it was for the original hire, the offer was made for one officer for 70, which made sense with all the experience. But I don't know how that was determined in the first place. I mean, it seems,
Pretty much 70 was picked out of the air. We kind of went at 50, and we went back and forth. But our lawyer advised us and we thought it common sense that we get somebody that has experience. And the people, that for 30 some dollars have no experience in this whatsoever. We didn't want
no,
that.
I mean, I do feel that.
And
Station.
yeah. So that's, I hope that answers your question.
And then the other thing I was wondering, once we have an officer, how will we be directed? I mean, say that fireworks tonight. Is that part of the job?
We're gonna be figuring this out, between the light committee, the officers that we're hiring and me
And Tom.
and Tom.
Alright, so that's
Yeah.
kind of, right.
Yeah.
So
You can put your 2 cents in it anytime.
Mhm.
okay. And I think the other thing, it said it was temporary.
The temporary is the $70 an hour
Once you're still looking for.
until he trains the guy and they go out a couple of times and he feels comfortable with letting somebody else that's not been a law enforcement officer take over.
And then one other question I had, this I think was brought in a meeting, and maybe other times, like Karen Cunningham, I think she recommended contacting the City of Frankfort or the county contract for someone.
Yeah.
And I was curious, I mean, that seemed like a good idea, I don't know,
The sheriff's department isn't interested.
okay,
They said they have enough on their hands. They don't need to be called in the middle of the night about fireworks.
now what about the City of Frankfort?
They too said that they're just not available. There's just not enough people.
They don't have enough
We're
officers.
on it.
And I want to add that when we were talking to Mike Kelly, and I'm the one who did all the phone calls on his references and passed all that information on, that's when the attorney and we got together on the $70. Then when he decided he didn't want to drive, we kind of have the ball rolling on this and we don't want to stop. So I kind of went home and said, honey, will you please? So this is a
Yeah.
stopgap till we can find somebody with this kind of background and bring them on. But
No, I'm really glad you're doing it, I think it's certainly, we needed this. Anyway,
okay,
that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Brady?
Yes, and maybe it pertains, maybe you want to wait till the zoning part. I want to talk about the Lake Shore Drive Ordinance.
You say what you need to say now.
Okay, I will. I'm gonna do 2 things. I'm just gonna read real quickly what the ordinance, hold on a sec. As you guys have it written states, and then also, if you don't mind, I'm gonna read a letter. From Molly and Daniel and Neil that they emailed you. Don't know if you guys have received.
I didn't get anything.
I didn't get anything.
I did.
Within like the last,
Time,
4:47.
47 tonight. Okay.
hold on. All over the place. Okay, as written for the Lakeview Drive, backlot owners means the persons who holds legal or equitable title to any lots 32 through 59 within the plat of Crystal Lake recorded in Library 2, page 55, and lots 1 through 13 in the first edition of the plat recorded in Library 2, page 59, Benzie County Records. So the question is, equitable title are the allowed users. We're looking for some clarity on, does that include children of backlot owners, property owners? If so, the way it's written currently, it says equitable owners, which would mean title owners of said property only, not children, not family, not guests.
Oh, interesting, okay.
So, I'm gonna read you now what Molly and Daniel O'Neill emailed you guys. Hello, trustees of Crystal Lake Township. I want to submit a short comment on the draft for Lakeview Drive Ordinance. So I'm unable to attend this evening's meeting. Very grateful for the township's continued interest in addressing past problems in Crystal Lake. I think overall, this ordinance clarifies imprecisions and will be very helpful to reducing cost. However, I'm concerned that the narrow definition of backlot owners given in section 3 represents a significant scaling back of backlot usage of Lakeview Drive that has existed for years or decades. While I absolutely recognize the desire to restrict the backlot areas from being used by short-term rentals, I'm concerned that the current language, the persons who holds legal or equitable title, also rules out the important categories of family members who currently use those areas. For example, I have 3 minutes already.
Yeah,
Okay,
we got the gist, I think, though.
so I think we're just asking for some clarity. Is it,
Right,
for example, my parents own that property, are they the only ones allowed to use it?
that's a good
Same goes
clarification
for
to get clear.
every other backlot. Thank you.
Yeah, very nice. Any other public comment at this time? Because we're gonna do some business now and you won't be able to speak again until we get down to the short-term rentals. And the next public comment will only be about short-term rentals. So anything else you wanna air at this point? Okay, thank you very much. We'll go on to financials. You're gonna explain that you don't have,
Oh, I thought we weren't even gonna discuss it.
oh, no.
This is my first tax year, and I didn't want to try and train somebody to enter tax payments till I was sure I understood how to do it. And by statute, I have a deputy, I just didn't feel comfortable training her because I've made mistakes that needed correction. So we have taken in a little over $5,500,000. You can imagine the amount of checks in, but so I have no financial reports for us, for the township. We have money. That's my financial report. Next month you'll have
Next month.
Yeah, next month you'll have 2 of them. It's just a lot of single interest on 1 million checks.
We can attest you're doing a good job.
Oh, I don't know. Well, I'll see how that all shakes out.
All right, and warrant report, Judy?
There are 2 additions to the general fund total. We did receive a bill from the Pioneer Group for $51.60. And then the balance of the Pro Image Design bill for the North Cemetery sign, that'll be an additional $2,545.65. So to the total, we are adding $2,597.25 for a new total of $7,957.21. For the cemetery fund, we have 185 $1,000.17 in expenses, and there are none for the fire and road funds. I move that we accept the warrant report as amended.
Isn't the pro image belong in the cemetery fund? No? Metro fund, you're right, okay. I'm corrected, yeah, okay. You moved,
I moved it.
I moved, I'll second
okay. Any discussion, questions? Take roll call, please, when you're ready.
Van Meter, yes. Marble,
it. Yes.
Northway,
Yes.
Nielsen,
Yes.
Ferris.
Yes. Thank you very much. Any other thing you want to report on financially speaking? Next, we're gonna get to reports, airport. Anybody?
Do you want an explanation on the waivers?
Well, you can quickly explain it. We have asked the lawyer for an opinion and he's never gotten back to us.
They might have a conflict. No, it's just a process that law firms have to go through to determine if they have a conflict of interest. So they check all their records, and everything, and just in case they miss something. Jump in here, something wrong. They get a waiver. Somebody comes in later. You represented us 50 years ago.
Right, and we do have some of those cases, so we're not sure how to handle it.
And you waive that conflict of interest. So that they're not conflicted out.
Well, we'll try to rush them. I wrote him again this afternoon saying, and last night and, you know, a couple of days ago.
Just formality. Signing the contract, get it to the attorney.
Any reports from the airport? The minutes from the last meeting or anything? Okay.
We usually get them the week before.
Okay, thanks.
You want the ones from 2 months ago?
We didn't get them. No, but, so that'd be great if you did. Any other questions about the airport? Does everyone have a copy in their packet of the waiver? So you know, it says page 6. I assume the first 5 pages included a waiver for the county. The page that we were given was township and city. And I assume that the rest of the 5 pages were the contract they have with you. Or the proposed contract. So I'll just have to wait till the attorney gives us some advice.
So didn't you want to add some language?
He did.
Okay. Then he needs to
get it on that. Next is the board of review. It's nominating Neil Brilliant, who lives on Shorewood, retired attorney, has volunteered to be appointed to the board of review commencing today. And with his membership renewable, if he fulfills the training and his duties, then if he is satisfactory in the job, he gets renewed every odd year.
Okay.
So I therefore move that we appoint Neil Brilliant. Second. Any discussion?
Does this mean Elaine can bump herself back to alternate?
Yes, which is what she wants. She's had a 30-year career as a labor and employment attorney. And so. We need to take a roll call. Would you like to do that?
Just a minute.
Do you want a piece of paper? I gave you a copy, didn't I?
No.
Here.
Van Meter, yes. Ferris.
Yes.
Northway,
Yes.
Marble,
Yes.
Nielsen,
Yes.
And then we have, the next thing would be enforcement, hire of the officer.
Get building on the ground.
Did I?
yeah.
Oh, buildings and grounds. We'll go back.
We'll make it quick.
Thank you.
Just an update on a couple of approvals from last month. Cemetery sign was approved, is built, it's installed out at the North Cemetery now, it's looking good. And the second one is the board's chairs, their new chairs.
which I really bought for the election workers, but the board gets the benefit. You heard Amy and Mike talking about a leak in the building across the street. Went over and looked at it yesterday. There's a vinyl tubing that's on the pump and it's on the well. Vinyl tubing is probably 30 years old. It's pretty deteriorated. So I've got Lake Shore Plumbing and Heating coming in probably later this week. They're gonna give me an estimate. We're gonna replace that vinyl with PEX. And we're gonna replace all the gate valves and ball valves. We modernize all the irrigation plumbing across the street. Then the last thing I think is this printer back here has been in this building since 2018. It's got a zillion cycles on it. And it's starting to cause some problems. Not feeding right, we're having some issues with it. So I got an estimate and for a new printer. And there's a resolution that needs to be approved or disapproved tonight for that.
And are we getting rid of that one too?
We don't,
Is that ours?
that's ours. Paid for since
Paid for.
2007. Still works.
Tom needed one also.
Oh, this purchase of the new printer really eliminates the need for having printers in his own office. So we can take those printers out
And
of
in
there
my office too, yeah.
in your office, so we can all use the one new printer
That works.
that works.
So I'm gonna go ahead and move that Crystal Lake Township agrees to purchase a replacement printer at the cost not to exceed $4,500. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And do you have a motion in front of you? You want, okay, good. Any discussion? Roll call?
Nielsen,
Yes.
Northway,
Yeah.
Ferris,
Yes.
Marble,
Yes, please.
Van Meter, yes.
Okay, good. Crystal Lake, no, Cherry Capital. Connection or communications. They, have been getting phone calls. Everybody's wondering what the orange tubes are sprouting along the roads everywhere. And so if you didn't get a print of this, we're glad to, give you some more. Did anybody need that information? They're just giving us an update on where they are and when they expect. You want to fill in anything for that?
What happened was they're about a month delayed because of a software update that they didn't get. Install the fiber optic out in our. So it put them back a little bit, but Tim Malone says that they should be finished by around Thanksgiving. Hopefully they get back.
Thank you. Next would be the enforcement officer hire proposal. And, we did offer the job, to Kelly, and he declined. So this is, a declaration that therefore Crystal Lake Township shall hire CLT resident and retired Chief Alan Marble, who is coming to us, after a couple of years of, hiatus of retirement. He's the law enforcement division of Michigan Department of Natural Resources. So when you poke that deer, that's the guy you met behind the tree. So, having, what?
Long time.
Yes, long time ago. You're old. I so moved. Did someone give me a second?
I will.
Okay, discussion.
Can I
Anybody,
discuss?
yeah, you can discuss.
Like I said earlier, I think we really are making some progress. And what we talked about is Alan will work with Tom and
Matt.
you
Oh, I see.
and Matt Stefanski to bring him in. Decide, we've got, I think, Sue, the 4 places we think are what we want to lead with. And we'll work on it.
Yeah.
And then my deputy, Amy Walton, has agreed to track the paperwork.
That's what the secretarial duties is in the next part. Any other discussion? Roll call when you have a minute.
Northway,
Yes.
Van Meter, yes. Nielsen,
Yes.
Ferris.
Yes.
Marble,
She can't vote.
she's abstaining.
I am.
Environment, thank you. You're hired, Alan. Alan, who used to throw crab apples at me, trying to get across the street one, I've been scarred since childhood.
Trying for attention. 13 years old.
Abby?
Hi, I'm Abby Elford. I am kind of reviving the environmental committee here in City Township. So I wanted to call attention to a couple of things we're trying to do on the website. First is we have an email that you can contact me directly. That's going to be if you navigate to the environmental committee. So if you've got questions, comments, concerns, send them that way. So the form that you can fill out if you have specific concerns that you'd like addressed. We're kind of just requesting feedback about things having to do with the environment, any concerns you have in the township. And then we would love some committee members. So if you have some interest, we have a volunteer application that I can forward to you, or just talk to me after the meeting and we can try to get set up.
Environment is what most people say they're here for, so that's the reason we're having a committee, see what the township can do to add our 2 cents.
Add one thing, we have got a woolly adelgid on our hemlock trees over towards the assembly, so keep an eye on your hemlock trees. I've already called the forester. She's gonna be out to look at our hemlock trees next week. I would advise you to take a look at it. If you find some of it, little like chunks that are on your hemlock trees,
And the lower branch.
on the lower branches. So you can get a hold of, can't remember the name of the agency.
Northwest Michigan Invasive
Invasive species. And they'll put you on the priority list to treat the trees. So just wanted to bring that up.
As a side note, I live in the Great Smoky Mountains at time, and it's devastating.
Is it?
It's devastating, and it really needs to be watched carefully.
Thank you, thank you. Abby, anything else? Oh, Tom,
Has the committee developed any kind of mission statement?
not yet.
We need some members before we can do that. Right now, I think there's maybe 2, maybe 3, and there was one outstanding application that I need to check out, but I'm also trying to solicit the input from other groups in the area, just like watersheds, some of the other, Betsy Valley Trail, just trying to kind of see where there's gaps in information, but generally speaking, it's gonna be water, land, soil, health, air quality. All of those are listed on the website, but yeah, as far as developing a mission statement, that would be a high priority.
Have you contacted John Fu?
I have not.
Because they currently have a committee with live membership. Okay,
Okay,
looking into the processes for environment.
Okay.
And they met this today, actually, meeting right along, and I encourage you to comment the Benton County Conservation District.
sure. Okay, yeah, our goal is to not have,
Become part of this member.
yeah, our goal is not to have overlap or redundancy, but to kind of link some of the groups that are working independently. Thank you.
Thanks. Just quickly, when you say website, is
Crystal Lake Township website, navigate to the environmental committee, and there's the email address, and then there's form feedback. It is a Google form, so we'll ask you to like sign into Google, so if that doesn't work for you, just email me.
thank you, Abby.
Yeah.
Planning and zoning, we're finally to Lake Shore Drive Ordinance. Do you want to take the lead on this?
Well, I'm Sarah, by the way. The ordinance basically, the history was there was a lawsuit. As a part of the lawsuit, it required the township to create an ordinance. The township created an ordinance was basically they just took the consent decree and copied it into the ordinance. Confusing and has created a lot of concern over time. So we asked the township attorney to look at it. And he has rewritten the ordinance to be more in line with the consent decree that was passed and be more explanatory. Okay. So that's what has been put in front of you. The basic elements of the ordinance are requirements of the consent decree set down by the court. So there isn't a lot of latitude. The question of equitable title, that would be something we would have to, again, refer to the township attorney to see what impact that would be.
I think it's an interesting objection. If that truly, reads very strictly, yeah, that you wouldn't have guests, you wouldn't have family, you wouldn't have renters, whatever. Is that something that you would recommend that we not vote on this tonight and to go back and have that clarified before we vote on it next month, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's worth getting clarification.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions about this? And would you agree with Tom?
If Tom says so. He's our ordinance guy.
Well, I do think that, it'd be interesting to see if we could get a more, and whether maybe he meant it could only be the title and no kids and no Uncle Fred.
Sure, it doesn't mean no kids, but the question of guests. And renters.
Yeah.
It's another issue.
Yeah, or if you give it to your aunt and uncle for the weekend, I mean, I don't know. So, okay,
I have a
Judy?
question. In a previous, version of the ordinance, after municipal civil infraction, the definition of that, there was a citation of where you could find the definition. I wondered why that was taken out. And then, is there any way? I mean, there's the violation and penalties, and that I know they're found in a different ordinance, and that's why you removed them. But is there any way of directing a person to that other ordinance so they know what the fines are?
We certainly could add language to go to, whatever, I think it's, 2013-01 or something.
I think that should be included.
Okay, where was the first one you were talking about?
Me?
Yeah, before you got to violate the penalties,
Section 8A,
8,
under violation. In a previous version, municipal civil infraction was defined. Or where you could, okay, defined in Public Act 12 of 1994, blah, 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 blah.
okay,
And I just wondered why that was taken out. And then I think there should be a reference to where they can find out what the
I
fines
got
are.
that one down. Okay, I'll take that back to the lawyer.
The reason the reference to the municipal civil infraction is taken out is that's defined in the other ordinance.
Okay, all right. The one where the fines.
Fines are.
Okay, gotcha.
So consensus is we get back to this next, sounds good. You want to say anything about your landscape consultant?
Well, we have an enforcement issue with the property on South Shore. And, part of the enforcement, issue is has to do with landscaping. Or the fact that they have, in violation of the ordinances, cut down most of the trees on the property. And, they have proposed a alternate landscape plan. I'm not an expert in landscaping, so we have hired a landscape professional to review their revised site plan relative to at least partial restoration of what was happened.
Okay,
And it's estimated at about $1,000, which will be back charged to the landowner.
okay. Any questions for Tom? Roads,
And the local road committee met recently and decided that we would like to chip seal a bunch of our roads this next summer. And in order to do that, there's a list out there on the board, and the extra copies. Next summer, in order to do that, process is that you have to tell the road commission in October what roads we want to chip seal. And what they do is go to different contractors and ask for bids. And then they come back to us with the bids, and then we sign the contract. And we may have to put some money down to do that, certain percentage of the total cost. But we have to get the contractors to bid on these roads, and there's quite a few here. And we think it's worthwhile doing. It should last 7 to 10 years once they're done. And in order to get the bids, so we can vote on dollar amount, we have to get the bids back. The bids won't even come back probably until January or February. But the contractors have to know so they can do their due diligence in November and December, the bid on it. So that's the plan. Now, we have plenty of money to do this. And, we don't want to let $600,000 just sit in the bank account when we've asphalted our roads, we've crack sealed it, we should put it, this is the final step. And it should be good for 7 to 10 years. It's doing almost all of the roads in the township. But there's nothing to vote on tonight except to ask the road commission to go ahead and accept our list of roads, and give us an estimate.
Well, why don't I make a motion? That'd be good with your writing here. Okay, that resolve that Crystal Lake Township does request that the road commission obtain bids in our behalf for chip sealing the following roads. And we can just,
I don't have one.
I'll give it to you. And do I have a second for that?
Thank you.
Any discussion?
Who's gonna get this to the road commission?
Well, I'm gonna meet with them, next Thursday after the meeting, but there's nothing wrong with, it would be nice to have
I'll write it up and send it.
use the supervisor sign it and send it to them, just so they know it's not just me.
And so any other discussion? I don't think this involves money at this point, so I'm just gonna say, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed. Okay, thank you. We're done with that. And we are now to old business, which is the short-term rental. And this is the time to stand up and talk. I had some great feedback written and submitted. So if you wish to augment what you've written or say something in public that's new for us, here's your chance. Who's first? Bob?
I'm Bob Schmidt, first of all, I want to thank everybody for doing this, because this community is very special. And we don't want to lose the neighborliness that we have, by having people that have no interest in the community renting out their places and things. I do think, that there should be perhaps one exception or maybe more. And that is, would be thinking in my case about the CSA. It's a ruling community. It's been going for a long time. I've only known it since my wife brought me here in '74. But it's had harmony most, and when it hasn't had harmony, it's worked it out. And I think one of the problems that the CSA has, and historically has, and will have in the future, is it's hard to make standard rules when some of these places are really modest and others are not. Some of the neighbors' bathrooms may be built on someone else's land and they don't know about it. I mean, it's that kind of informal kind of organization. So I would suggest consideration be given to a little section for exceptions. And I don't mean, because I think this is wonderful for CSA trustees to have some framework, because they have these issues too. But to let them modify it relative to the CSA community. And when I say the CSA community, I mean only the member part of the community, the original landmass, not associate members. So that there could be some modification by the trustees, approving it to this that would fit into what we're doing. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you. Tom?
I guess I'd just like to give a little history as to how this was developed. Back sometime in May or June of '23, the board asked the planning commission to develop a draft of a short-term rental agreement or ordinance. This is not a zoning ordinance. This is what is called a police ordinance. So it is independent of the zoning ordinance entirely. In August of '23, the planning commission advertised and held a public to see if there was interest on part of the community in even having it. And that was fairly well attended. And the community expressed that yes, they felt that at least to control corporate type short-term rentals, Airbnb, VRBO. Know that, I get phone calls, just about 3 or 4 a month from people wanting to buy land with the sole purpose of building one or more units on the land just to rent them. With that, after hearing the presentation, from the community, interaction from the community, starting in January, I think. Yeah, in January this year, the planning commission has been discussing this, ordinance, and the language in the ordinance, what's involved at the public meetings. And, so this was 7 months worth of meetings. Yeah, well, I'm going to say earlier, but at least 7 months of meetings, in which the details of this were worked out. And so the planning commission got the ordinance to a point where they felt that it should go to the township board to be reviewed by the board, because ultimately the votes went on the land commission. So that's just a little bit of history as to how we got here and the process of getting here.
Thank you.
I just asked Tom a quick.
Sure.
So I just happened to notice that Frankfort has a short-term rental ordinance.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, what did you kind of use as a model when you would draft?
Well, when we entered into this, we collected, sample ordinances passed by other places. Frankfort was one, Elmwood Township was another. I don't know, we collected what, 7 or 8 from Lake Township. And we tried to keep it to townships that reflect, the type of we have in Crystal Lake Township, rather than going to, say, Oakland Township, or, something more like that, keep with a rural, summer cottagey atmosphere, to develop the language. And so we pick and chose out of various things, to arrive at this.
Could I get the gentleman's name?
Yeah.
Oh. Talked to you on the phone before, election related stuff.
Welcome aboard.
Anybody else? Yeah, Lee?
No, so are they gonna start enforcing this now? Or because I have, by me, it's like every other house us, it's Airbnb now. And now we have one guy who's living in his camper in his backyard, Airbnb in his house, and now he has a damn sailboat in his yard, he has electric and water, the 2 people are staying in that. It's getting,
So you're just asking to be enforced if we.
yeah, because it's getting a little ridiculous.
Well, to answer that question, once the board votes on it, and it becomes active 30 days. The approval.
Because we
Unless
had,
there-
30 days after publication.
Publication.
we had here about a month ago, we had a group. Application kids come up and they rented like 5 houses, one Craps Families, one up on Runway Road and one on Airport Runway. It was all the same group for a wedding. So we had drag racing up and down the road, all hours of the freaking night, broken beer bottles up and down the damn road. I mean, it was a disaster. They were here for like 4 days and it was a mess.
Yes, Bill?
Bill here, and I'm on the planning commission, we worked on this quite a bit, but that's one of the main things, people said, we've got to do this, it has to be enforceable. And I think the key to this, that it really puts responsibility on the landlord to see that people are behaving, but it also puts responsibility on the renters, because if they pay for a week and the landlord says you're disobeying the rules, you're out and you don't get a refund. And that's it. So we've made this. And then the other key is that it's you, the neighbors, who are going to see that it actually works, because you will have the phone number of the landlord. And so you'll be able to call them directly.
He's living there in a camper with them.
Well, you call him, you call Tom or Alan, whoever it is at that point. But the whole thing is set up to be enforceable. No sense going through all this if it's not enforceable.
Well, that's what I'm asking. They actually,
The other thing I'm going to say is, we really spent a lot of time trying to tailor this for this community. And, because you hear a lot about short-term rentals from Traverse City, from Grand Rapids, even Columbus, Ohio. Although being from Columbus, Ohio, I don't know why anybody would. But we tried to just fix it, you know, to what works for us. And people did say, even those that were having problems with noise and stuff, said, we know this is important for the economics of the community. We know there are lots of families that are trying to hang on to their cottages by renting them out. So we just want people that are renting to not be disrupted. And I think we've got it. I think this really gets it and it's enforceable. And if not, we'll come back and tweak a little bit more, but I think we really worked hard on it, and I think that the key was to make it enforceable.
It's not every weekend, but you get the bad groups that come in and they just.
But the landlords, imagine if the landlord loses his license for just a week, you know, he's losing several $100. If he loses it, you know, for a season, he's losing thousands of dollars. So that it really puts it on the landlord.
Yeah, Abby?
So also on Carlson Road, I have a concern about the fact that it might not apply to our properties over at Carlson Road due to the lot size specified in the current.
Okay, left. Somebody else? Yes, hi.
We're hoping that the board is gonna be able to approve this fairly soon, because we're shooting for next spring to have things in order. People can start, filling out applications. And the first year, it will be no fee, and we're gonna get a handle on how many of these we have. We don't know right now. We want to get it going for next year. It's been actually 2.5 years since we said.
Okay.
Are you referring to the short term?
Yeah.
Josh Newsoms, I'm just curious if, when it comes to that point, is there gonna be like a max cap per individual as to own? My question is, there's an incentive for financially endowed people to buy more than rent out potentially subpar conditions. I saw it in Manistee currently. But then it also kind of would not allow other people to potentially try an honest stab at it. But if there was a max reached, do you then go to potentially the person who owns the most and take away one house or something? I'm just asking if there's.
I think we're going to get to 2 or 1 or 2.
I like that number even better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Olivia Fox. I just bought a home in the area. Thankful to be a part of this community. It's been my dream since a very small child to have a place near my family. So I am thankful to be here and be able to come. But I really would like to understand from the community and the board, is this a concern that a few are ruining it for all? Or is this a concern that we are afraid of what's gonna happen in the future if we don't try to put some boundaries around it? Because as the new property owner on the lake, my intention is to be up here every year with my family, but if I do need to be able to rent it out to a family member or something, I feel like there was no restrictions before I bought my property. Am I gonna be grandfathered? I know I have an HOA that says I can only rent out my property for 6 weeks max year. I'm part of the CDCA. I respect that decision. They want to try to keep the community small, similar to the CSA, with everyone being great neighbors. But I want to understand, is this something that we're trying to enforce because some people are not being neighborly? Some people are not following rules that are established, or Airbnb says you should be following ordinances and you should have maximum people on property? Or is it something that's just trying to be put in place so that we're capping financial investors to try to come out and buy a bunch of property and take that opportunity away from other folks for raising property value and not having it be the place where anyone can go buy a property or a home because they want to be able to spend time here with their family if it's a first or a second home. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Reading the ordinance, the proposal, I saw I read and I felt there was conflicting things. I felt that I agree that there should be some neighborliness and people should follow the rules, but also are we putting some max restrictions specifically for financial gain for other people that want to have multiple Airbnbs. So there are people that have that in this community. How is that gonna be addressed with those folks? So I'm wondering grandfathering things in and also trying to tailor it to folks. I think, if I had, speaking, I know I'm probably wrong, but if I had a rental neighbor next to me and they weren't following the rules and they were disturbing me, I would go have a conversation with the person I was renting and I also call the owner. And I would let them know that they were violating nuisance complaints, and I would really ask them to consider if they really should be renting out those people again. And I hope that it's a small few that are ruining it for the bunch, and I just trying to get some understanding from both on that. Sorry.
We're worried now about both of those things, what's happening now and in the future, because things are happening, all these different tours that we experience with. But there is a clause for family and friends who've been renting for years to their relatives and their friends, and they're excluded. We're targeting the corporate owners.
Okay.
Anybody who's advertising will probably someone recommended it.
And Bill, you had.
Well, again, I'm gonna say, and this is the example I've kind of given people. If you have your place, and you have somebody on one side that's doing short-term rental, and somebody on the other side that is just a siblings, couple of, adults that their family share, you're gonna have more control over the short-term rentals as their condo than you do one that's, privately owned. Right, because these will have definite enforceable rules, and the other ones are pretty, vague as far as noise and things, so. This is set up that you will have more control over the short-term rental people's behavior than the family next door that owns the cottage and has all their kids and college kids coming.
Okay, anybody else at this point? Joe?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I don't know if you've given, first of all, I want to thank you for the event. I mean, I really feel so. Have you thought about who's going to issue the permits and how it's going to be handled? That's so that.
Tom, you want to answer that?
Well, to bring this up, and that is, the board needs to consider that in order to handle this, it's gonna have to create an administrative system. Okay? And that administrative system is gonna have to receive applications. They're gonna have to review them. They're gonna have to receive the fees. They're gonna have to enter this information into some form of spreadsheet or database. So that when someone calls in and says, I'm not getting a response from license number so-and-so or property number so-and-so, they can go to the database and get the information that they need. And again, someone to respond to inquiries, and to maintain this database and so on. So there is a cost to the township to set up an administrative system to administrate this ordinance.
I was gonna ask this when we close public comment, but, will the fees pay for that administrative person?
Probably not. Okay, unless, the setting of fees in the state, you have to be able to show a correlation between, the cost of doing business and the fee you're charging. Okay,
Okay,
and some other parameters. So setting fees is something that would need more study.
okay,
We, again, based on other communities around the area, the fees that are in here are similar to the ones around the area.
Would it make sense to collaborate with the Chamber of Commerce with Frankfort and have a person physically there? That would also be a benefit to them. It would be collectively paid for and that would be
That's a possibility. I mean, right now, Frankfort has their system. It's being monitored by Josh Mills, the city manager / zoning administrator, and the chief of police. In Lake Township, they actually hired an individual to handle this and also be the enforcement officer. Benzonia Township is starting their process of coming up with their version of this. And they will handle that, you know, will play out over time.
Okay, one last comment, Neil?
Yeah, one question, Neil. Once you pass, how do you publicize it enough that everybody who's doing short-term rentals finds out they have to apply for a license? And also, how are you gonna handle, you know, one person who just says, oh yeah, I'm renting it out, but it's just family members, and actually they've got some rental agencies actually.
Well, but again, just like so many other things in the community, we depend on the community itself to act as an additional policeman to police their own community. If they see a property next door and there's a rental agency and they don't have their license number on their sign, you call them up and ask for their license number, and they don't have it, it would be reported to the township.
And the ordinance will be published in the newspaper.
Yes.
And
At
we'll
least
send this out.
a summary of the ordinance and referring to the website for
And on the website, and then also, and then, 2 times a year, we do a newsletter, so we would do our best to try to communicate with. the
Well,
public.
and maybe we do a special mailing.
Maybe,
I mean, to get the word out there. And it sounds like the first year, it's no fees. We're just trying to get a handle on how many people have rentals. So it would cost us to administer it. But then after that, we set fees and figure out how that's going to offset.
Well, if I read it right, it looks like part of the number you're willing to issue is somewhat dependent upon how many people apply the first year. And because of that, I think you should do as much publication as possible. Because you also don't want somebody coming in the second or third year who can't get a license. So, well, gee, I never heard I was supposed to do it the first year.
yeah,
I think there's an appeal process in the ordinance. And also we put in the process that allows the board to change the number of licenses without having to redo the ordinance. They can change the number of licenses. A good example was Cunningham Township. They passed a short-term rental ordinance, and probably 2 meetings later, there were something like 12 or 14 amendments. And 6 months later, there were another 12 or 14 amendments to it. We tried to learn from that. And for certain elements of it, we leave that to the board based on community.
there's 2 other people that really wanted to say something, so I'm gonna allow that, if it's short.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hi, I'm Greg Winenberg. My brother and I have had a place on the lake for a while. My grandfather's been bringing his family up here for 70-something years. So, thank you very much for all the work you've done on the short-term rental ordinance draft. I just wanted to say I submitted written comments, via email shortly before the meeting. Some of the concerns that have been raised, I also noted, and I would urge the group to take a look at them. I think there's some considerations you probably should take back to your attorney as well on potential liability that you're opening the township up to with inspection clauses. The costs associated with facilitating the fees or facilitating the licenses, the application processes. Just a few things beyond what's in the draft ordinance that should be probably thought through in terms of your comment of, can this be enforced? Can we actually get this to happen? It's might be great on paper, but make sure that there's processes in place and that you can fund what you plan on doing.
thank you.
Just one closing comment on it. I think there's. I don't want to be rude to the family-owned houses because my mom is the product one, but I think some of the nuisance issues are also there, not just in short-term rental. I think if there is a bigger goal of curbing nuisance problems, maybe look at nuisance ordinance and enforce it more of an umbrella issue, more of an umbrella ordinance to target the bigger problems that arise across the board. But that's all I have to say.
Okay, and Bill, you're the
I
last.
was just gonna say, in the draft that the planning commission has given you, probably the part that's the most ragged, that needs a little more community thought, is that part about how and when and what criteria you would use to set the limit. I think even if you publicize this and send us like letters, people don't, they're scattered all over. The first year, you're probably only gonna get 85% of the people who are actually doing it. If you use that number, then you're already, your limit is 15% low. So then once you set limit, then you gotta come up, all these other, how's gonna be a waiting list, who's gonna have priority? Is somebody gonna be grandfathered in? Does it transfer? You sell the property? So all those things are gonna have to be thought. But I would say, just put that off until this has been in place for a couple of years, and we see if this doesn't resolve most of the problems. I think it will.
Okay, thank you for all your public comment. I'm gonna do a little weird thing here with your grace and say that before we start just the board discussing short-term rentals, I'm gonna skip to the new business. Because it's not really something that anybody has to, it's just informing you, if you didn't already know. Where the 7th Street beach is, the public beach, that in that property back where it is woodsy, that is where they're putting the new cell phone tower. I don't want people to be shocked. That's not our doing. Do you want to address it at all, Tom? And then as soon as then. If anybody wants to leave after this, if we discuss it, you're welcome to.
The Bellows Beach Park actually goes from the Crystal Lake all the way out to Thomas Road. A lot of people are not aware of that. So the city of Frankfort has, let me back up, a couple of years ago, I was contacted by a cell phone tower company. They had 2 locations in mind, and they were processing relative to their equipment and coverage and so on and so forth. They were gonna pick 1 of 2 locations. One was the North Cemetery and the other one was Bellows Beach Park. Because of the electronics and coverage and so on and so forth. They have ultimately settled on Bellows Beach Park. They have gone to the City of Frankfort. The City of Frankfort has granted them a lease, the piece of property. They've submitted information about what they're gonna actually do up there. It's a 95-foot communication tower. It will stick well above the trees. They have provided photo simulations of what it will look like from various vantage points. It will not be lighted. I've confirmed that with them. I've also confirmed that it has a relatively small footprint that will be inside a fenced area. Seen these elsewhere that have some support equipment in them. It's a relatively small area. I don't remember off the top of my head what it is. There will be some tree removal, need an access road to go into it.
This was not our doing. Since all Frankfurt, we were informed of it.
And they have been, the tower company has been working with me to control tree removal and so on and so forth. But ultimately, if you're out on the lake or you're viewing back in, you're now going to see a communication.
It's 195 feet.
195.
And I'm going to pass these around, and I did this so that, we saved ink. And I didn't make copies for everybody, but there's without the tower and what it will look like with the tower. And each picture is with and without, so you can see. If you'd like to start that and pass it around.
Did they not consider a tree?
They did consider a tree, but what they found is the fake tree that they come up with, looks pretty fake.
It's a pretty good one.
And number two, it's pretty much all made out of plastic. It deteriorates relatively
I
quickly.
didn't.
I don't know, I haven't seen one of these plastic trees around. I know the one that they showed looked semi-real, and they have a problem with people trying to cut them down. So when they put the tree, they put a sign on them.
So is this supposed to be service for all the phone companies or just one?
Well, the way this works is, they have the same thing with the, water tower in Frankfort and the same thing with the light tower on Graves Road. The companies will come in and rent space from them. Okay, so, it depends on the carrier as to whether they're going to, AT&T or Verizon or whoever. But, certainly the people down on South Shore, their phones will go over.
Okay, what I'm gonna say is we're gonna get back to, the board, just discussing the business of short-term rentals. You're very, very welcome to stay and encourage if you want to see us debate and talk about this. But if you want to leave now, we are not going to vote on this tonight. So, I don't know. Yeah. And I'm not kicking you out. I'm just saying this is it. So, okay, guys.
No.
Jack. Okay, everybody, quiet in the audience then. Sorry. Okay, guys, where do you want to start with this?
For me, I've managed rentals for 20+ years for family and friends. The ordinance that we're trying to put in place as a board representative that I'm working towards are the guys who come in and they want 9 and 10 properties. We're not trying to discourage a family that wants to rent their property to help offset taxes a little bit. But we are trying to get a handle on who is renting. And Mr. Schmidt left, but I will talk to him about it. I disagree. The CSA rentals have gone way up over the years. And they do try to self-regulate them by having a form you fill out, and there has to be a local person that you can contact for the rentals. And I think that's more where we're headed. This isn't to stop Josh if he wants to rent his cottage for a couple of weeks. We're just asking that we know you're doing. And today, when Olivia called, I punched a few numbers, and these are rough, but we have about 1,713 parcels. Now, not all of those have a house on them. But there are 568 approximately that are primary residents. That leaves 1,145 potential parcels/houses that could be rented. And even if you knock that off and try to figure out how many are just vacant parcels, that's a lot of properties. And I don't think it's awful that we wanna know who's renting in the area and make sure that there is somebody local you can contact. I know from my experience, there's several rentals where I was managing, you had no idea who to call. They booked it through VRBO and Greg Wright came in and stayed there. And if I went up and said hi to you, you don't even know who the owner is. And I think that's what we're trying to do, not discourage anybody that wants to make a little money off their place. But I do have a couple questions for the guy who wrote this. What about places like Three Pines or Pine Farm? If we do regulate it to two buildings?
Good point. It's not something we didn't consider because they have multiple rentals.
And I wondered, like, Three Pines is probably incorporated and it's probably a rental company,
Absolutely.
but I don't know that the Pine Farm is.
I don't know either. I had that in my notes too about.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Pine Farm absolutely is a business.
Okay,
No question about it.
so I think as much as we'd like to regulate the Pine Farm, I think they aren't going to fall under this ordinance because they're a business.
No, because they're still in the residential zone,
Okay,
right?
I love that, but I think we are gonna get a ton of pushback from Three Pines and Pine Farm if we try to limit buildings.
I'm sure you will, and you may want to discuss that because something to open in there. Just like has been suggested with the CSA. I know the Pine Farm, the residents around there.
I know.
Noise, constant noise during the summer and so on is a real problem.
And some of the things that I found in here are just like Greg is saying. We get something in place, it doesn't mean it's hard and fast, and then we have to make some changes, but at least we have a place to start. Things like, I said legal bedrooms, and that you could only have 2 people per bedroom. A lot of the cottages I manage have bunk rooms. I mean, they have twin over full.
The reason for the 2 per bedroom
Okay,
is that's the basis of the septic system design,
okay,
okay? And to have more for an extended length of time is potentially overloads the septic system. And if it's repeated on a regular basis, ultimately the septic system.
so if you put a ceiling on it of 12 people per rental. How are we tying that to the bedroom and the septic issue?
Well,
Well, the limiting factor is the bedroom plus 2. But that's the way the health department determined the size of the septic. 12 is the max, no matter how big your septic system is.
Okay. I could just see there'd be, I mean, 2 of the cottages I rent have bunk rooms.
Right.
And they don't always fill them, but there could be 2 kids in there, or 3 kids. And we're saying only 2 per bedroom.
And all of them have sofa beds, that, and where they count that as how many of them hold, so.
Dogs being locked for no more than 2 hours, that's gonna be really hard for renters.
well, if the dog is a parking problem for 2 hours,
Absolutely, I get that part. I would say,
you have a local then contact number that you can call, and that person is supposed to respond within 2 hours.
so maybe the wording, we tweak it a little to barking, not that they've got a dog they've left alone for 2 hours.
Well, yeah, potentially that, yes. Yeah. You could tweak that to say a dog causing a nuisance.
Remember, we're kind of talking to ourselves. You can ask the
I know,
people in the,
okay.
Yeah.
All right,
any others no, you can talk to the guys who wrote it. Yeah.
the old cottages will never meet egress windows. And I think that's more a limiting factor on what Olivia's talking about with renting. I mean, you get into these old cottages and they don't have egress windows.
Well, comment there, that's kind of between the owner and his
Okay,
Okay? Because it is a, I don't know, the fire chief left, but I don't know about fire ordinances, but that comes into play.
okay.
And, if there are probably a lot of cottages now that are not, or, don't need the building. Or electric.
So we as a board, how do you feel about that?
Oh, I think it's one of the concerns I wrote down. I mean, yeah, I grew up in those old shacks. It's,
So you could argue it both ways.
well, I think at least you should have a window in every bedroom. Or a door, that kind of thing, but whether, to demand, I just, had to replace all our windows. I just like, do you know how much windows cost these days? And so you're asking somebody who has a family cottage that their grandfather built on the weekends back in the 1900s. And you say you need to put new Anderson windows in there, it's like, ooh. Even my windows in my 1955 house are casement windows. I'm not sure any old person could get out. So I think it's a problem. I don't know. But is that a short-term rental policy problem or is that a?
It has more to do with, fire code, liability.
Do we say that's their problem, the fire code and liability, and it's not our problem with the short-term rental?
Here's the thing, if I can interrupt.
Sure,
If you were renting it for 31 days,
yeah,
it wouldn't affect the township at all. That would be between the owner and, his insurance company and whoever wants to bring suit against you. So by stepping in and saying, oh, we're gonna make these regulations for less than 31 days, you're kind of accepting, some liability if something goes wrong.
That we're accepting the liability.
The township is accepting liability because you're kind of putting your stamp of approval on it.
And do you know how many of these rentals probably don't tell their insurance agents they're renting?
It's into
our insurance agent here.
I mean, Sue, what do you, we're supposed to be talking, I just think there's a lot of them that don't let their insurance agents know they're renting.
Well, something, if I can interrupt again, is something you're saying, the real thing was the behavior of the folks that were staying there. That's what the public said, we want you to deal with. A lot of this is borrowed from other units of government who wanted to, regulate a lot.
We've heard this
We
down,
got rid of
this
a
is
lot.
pared down.
But you could also pare it down and say, hey, these rental places are probably as safe as anything that gets rented within the township, but they're more likely to have been remodeled and modernized and.
Well, I have the treasure from Lake on speed dial while I've been trying to learn this job and Lake Township. Theirs has been in place. She said it was a huge public. Everybody was, not everybody, a lot of people showed up worried, like word hearing. They put it in place and she said with the person that's handling it, it's just quiet. It's worked really well.
That's nice to hear.
And I think ours is a lot like theirs.
Which township was that?
Lake Township.
Well, my question of like, if we changed it a lot, but they were very much anti short-term rentals. The whole thing seemed to be, hey, we want to limit the number, and if that number doesn't get met the next year, we want to reduce it and keep reducing it.
Because they have 150 licenses is all.
Yeah, and that's it. So the folks who came from Crystal Lake Township, they were not that antagonistic towards short-term rentals. They recognize that a lot of these are families that are trying to keep the cottage in the, being able to afford it year after year. Everybody did say that they want to keep these, big corporations out. We've tried to do that by just limiting it to, anyway.
It seems to me that a lot of these stipulations could be pretty easily added in. Access, egress, and things like that, stipulated in the terms of the short-term rental.
Well, there's, some of them are in there.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, would you have your renter sign a waiver that? You know, all right, Ames, your turn.
oh, I was gonna,
I don't think
I've got-
it's the renter, it's the owner
do you have stuff?
of the rental unit that you're talking about. That I think needs to make sure that he's covered because he's gonna get sued.
And relative to replace a window, the renting these places for $1,000 plus a week or something like that. You know, there's a lot of income coming off of it. So,
Find me a place for 1,000.
yeah. And so I'm low, I'm probably half once.
If I'm gonna go next, I just, I noticed that throughout, I objected to numbers. It's like two, how about just one, license, or, number of bedrooms, how about number of beds, count that. Or even time, 11, or what is it, 8 to 11? It's like, no, I don't get to start blasting their music at 10 o'clock and go to 11, that's too late, so I have a lot of personal things like that.
But you did ask where the 22,000 square feet came from.
Yes, I did.
Because Abby was wondering hers won't fall.
Well, that's a half acre. So, kind of the problem, most of these, are on the Lake Shore where lots are close together. There may be some that are, in the rural preservations, 2.5 or 5, but not many, and there's probably not that many disruptions that could be handled without having to have licenses.
Okay.
But I think if you do that, then we have to go back through the whole thing, because now you're making rules for somebody that has a half acre the same as somebody that has 20 or 30 or 40 acres. We have to go back to the whole thing. It would just not be reasonable. So if you want to put this into practice again, but I agree that we need to have a way of dealing with those folks too. It may not be though by the license. We may have to send Alan to it.
At one place, it seemed like it was like you had to respond with 1 hour, and then the other is 2. But anyway, I just, several times, I was circling numbers. So complaint within, yeah. Section 5. Number 4 says, respond within 1 hour, and then another page it says 2, which is
Page 8.
page 8. Oh, well, and then isn't this the one where we have to come up with a criteria?
Or
Isn't there a thing where we have to come up with a criteria of violations or something?
The
No,
fee
did I
schedule,
imagine
the fees are in here again. We keep taking them out of the other ordinances and they're in this one,
oh,
the penalties. So do those need to come out of this one too?
But this isn't an ordinance.
It's an ordinance,
It's
it's
an
not,
ordinance.
You said it's a police something, not.
Ordinance,
yeah,
it's not a zoning.
Okay.
correct.
yeah, it should be a separate document so that it's easily changed without
Okay.
changing the whole ordinance. I'm sorry, I was sure that we talked, that there was some place in here where we had to write up a little criteria book.
We gotta write up the good neighbor booklet.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay, the new, sorry. Anyway, those are my comments. Who's next?
Mine were mostly grammar and punctuation and the fees. All these little yellow highlights. And then the fee thing,
Okay,
that was the thing that jumped out at me again.
anything more theoretical, umbrella?
Because I don't know enough about rentals. I mean, not like you do, Jill.
Correct?
If this ordinance is passed, it's a police ordinance,
That's what it's called, yeah.
then it would be effective for everybody the date it's passed. And I don't believe that you can be grandfathered in. I mean, everything, the ordinance is the ordinance, the date it's passed, you have to comply with it.
Right.
Regardless, So I just want to make sure people are aware that someone mentioned grandfathering, there's no such thing in a police ordinance. When it's passed the way it is written.
So the 30-day publication thing doesn't apply to this one?
It does.
Once that 30-day limit is up,
Okay,
it has been fully enforceable. It's no brainer.
Well, to answer your question, I thought it is true. There are two different reasons we're going after this. One is the current disruption. Right? Because we do get people who call and you don't like to be, believe me, the recipient of those calls that the neighbors are doing this again and do something about this. So I've had 14 years of that. And then there's the first case we had on South Shore where they bought a place for no other reason. They were not gonna live there. They were not gonna give it to family. It was for renting. And that has snowballed, of course, as you've seen. And that is the future thing. So, yeah, we don't want to lose our community by turning it into Acapulco, it's like, we don't want it to be a destination where you come and do your 2 weeks or 1 week or even a weekend and leave again.
But we do want to be able to have people that need to rent a little bit to pay their taxes, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the liability that you're bringing up, that on one hand, we want to say these old cottages are great, everybody stays in them and they rent them and there's not a problem. Then we put an ordinance in place and all of a sudden we're liable because they're not up to code.
Well,
Go, Tom.
yeah, and I would. There is a section in here that needs to be reviewed by our insurance carriers.
Okay.
Okay. And I'd have to point it out right in front of me right away, but there is a section that somewhat addresses that.
The landlord's supposed to have insurance that covers the township.
Well,
But that, I think you have to have a lawyer look at that and see whether that really is.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
insurance, insurance agent, flash.
but I think when
To look at,
they say they have a license from the township, I think that implies that they have, that you back it as being safe. That the township backs it as being safe.
well, doesn't the fire department have to inspect it before the application is
Inspect it,
approved?
say you don't have the right size window, then you have to decide what you're gonna do.
This is a
but
tough one.
again, that's part of the administration
Mhm.
is, Lake Township went to the extent of the size of the kitchen.
Yeah.
What else?
Really?
Oh, yeah, size of the kitchen.
Yeah, size of the bedrooms per person and all that kind of stuff. You figure. People already stay there for a week and they have a choice of not coming back, leaving in the middle. So that seemed to get a little bit of overkill.
Yeah, it discourages renting.
And then there's the practicality of this. They want to get it going, if we vote and we want to get it going. Who's gonna do all the paper?
That administrative thing. I think we should interview who's doing it for Lake and see how much this really involves. Now Jill has left, my friend Jill over here, but she was one of the ones, ancient cottage. Egress windows, very questionable, whether you could get out those things. She was, oh gosh, now I lost my train of thought. Why was I bringing up Jill? The other Jill. Don't know. Sorry.
How about the administrative stuff?
Yeah, she does go through verbal. She goes through verbal.
Oh, yeah.
Cliff said, I'm selling the cottage. I'm 90-some years old. The kids all say, none of the kids have any money. And so they all said, Dad, don't do it. And so that's what the kids came up with. They have verbal and Jill is the on-site person. And,
Sorry, what's Verbo?
Vacation rental by owner.
So,
I know it well.
Airbnb is implying that it's a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, that it's,
And people aren't necessarily doing breakfast at it.
so I don't have a problem calling and talking to the lake person
Okay.
and see what I can find out on the administration part of this. I just don't know who's sitting here.
Mark Jingle.
Okay.
EMK.
And times, you think, I don't know, 8 to 11, they can do what they want?
That was our suggestion. You all are.
8 to 11, they're on vacation.
Yeah, but you're also, that's the day, that's the whole day. If I'm living next door to one of these people and they're nuts, and
So what's your suggestion?
shorter hours that you can do whatever you want. I'd like to sip my coffee in the morning without having the teenagers next door blasting their phone box.
All right, 8 to what?
I'd say 9 to 10. You can spend friends over, you just can't be on the beach whooping it up. Isn't that
It doesn't get dark till 10.
that's true.
It's not a retirement home, it's a rental.
Right. Yeah, and as Bill pointed out, yeah, you have better regulation of the rentals than
Right.
Aunt Minnie's stepchildren next door.
But the difference is you know who she is.
Yeah, and you can go over and talk to
You
her.
go over and talk to them. That's the difference.
We do have, a lot of other complaints we get are all the vehicles that come up. They come up with skidoos. There's trailers, they leave them out on South Shore or on wherever. There's 4 couples that went together to rent this, so there's each 4 cars and each brought their own boat. And then, there's no room for all this.
Well, that's in there. I mean, the parking is one of the requirements.
Yeah.
So are we not allowed?
I'll wrap this up and we'll have another public comment. I don't know, what do you wanna do, guys? This is a tough one.
I don't know where we go from here, but this needs editing.
Yes, we're not voting on it.
Oh, God. It needs editing.
Judy, will you do the proofing stuff?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, Judy will proof.
you're gonna talk to the
I'm
administrative
gonna talk to
person.
the administrator. You and I are gonna look at our questions and see which ones overlap.
Well, and I think, I keep saying this, and I'm a broken record with you anyway, that the feedback, all that written stuff that we got back,
Mhm.
I thought there's some very good points in there. And my sister didn't write anything, but she was saying, "I'm just an old lady, single. I can't follow all these rules. This is too much to handle."
Well, and I
It's a
think,
lie.
I think it looks more paper heavy than maybe it is once they get into it. They fill out, they tell us what they have, they tell us who their contact person is. Jane can do it.
Well, and Jane would not rent to somebody that she advertises to.
Correct.
And that's an exception.
Yeah,
And that's an exception already. So if you're not advertising, Olivia, you're golden. It's-
How big is a piece of property?
she just rents like to
What's the acre to
5, she's got 5
5
acres.
She doesn't need her license, she's exempted on. You only have 22,000 square feet.
Well, she's the type that doesn't just look out for herself. She thinks it's unfair for, and
But I think
That's
that's,
another thing you may want to consider, is the 22,000.
half an acre, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Rick,
I think it might be nice to talk to, if we could find a township that has the same problem we have. Find out who's administering,
this,
because they would know what the issues really are, and how they deal with them would be important, because we have to deal with the same issues.
maybe Jenko would come and speak to us.
yeah, that might be good.
I mean, something, to get some input from someone who's doing this right now.
Well, Frankfort would be another one, but, also. Talk to Josh for those things.
And I think another way to look at it is a lot of these people are gonna meet the exceptions. if we say 2 properties, then that's going to alleviate the people with more, or either they're gonna come to us and say, we're suing you. But Olivia's exempt.
Well, how about Pine Farm? How about, Killian?
Yeah, there's an appeal process.
Yeah,
I missed that. I think I even wrote that down. How do you appeal the decisions? But maybe I missed it. Severability,
Page 13.
appeal, you're right there, and I even have 14 plus 14. I was saying again with my numbers that you have to appeal within 14 days, and then you got another 14 days before the answer. It's like, that's a whole month's gone by.
tighten it up, okay?
Okay, so
I think
let's wrap this up.
you're going to edit. You and I'll see what our questions, which ones overlap.
And let's see about the feedback that people have given us, if it's not been addressed thus far.
And I
And
think maybe we look at who gets exceptions and who, we have a column of exceptions and a column of who's being targeted on this. And I think that's going to relieve a lot of stress.
okay, so we've got our work done, set out for us.
And I think we need to talk to our insurance company.
Yeah, maybe even a lawyer.
Well, this has gone through.
Okay,
Okay, but our insurance, what is our liability if we put this ordinance in place?
right. Bill?
There's another thing I'd like you to consider, and is maybe you don't have to do a new license every year. Maybe it cuts down on the work if you do a new license every 3 years or 5 years. I mean, once somebody gets into this, they're not necessarily, changing the next year.
Well, and the reason, the way you've got it written, once you're in and you're approved, if you have no violations, your renewal's automatic.
Well, but it's only if you're under the limit. I mean, if you set a limit, and so it's first come, first served. So if you file later.
Nope, that's not how it's written.
That's how it's written, that if you don't get it in on time, it's
Well,
not
if you don't
automatic.
get it in on time,
Right.
but you have to come to us and say you're a renewal before November, and you're automatically in if you don't have any violations.
Yes,
So,
I remember that.
yeah, so that's not impossible.
Okay,
And if people want to make money renting, being accountable for it's not all that bad. So you just have on your calendar, October, refile for rental.
Paying your taxes.
Exactly.
okay, can I close this down?
Uh,
All right, back here then, we've already taken care of number 14, and at 15, we're back to a public comment. So anybody wish, Neil?
So in terms of the liability, I guess the comment I have is, are you trying to do this from a nuisance perspective or from a safety of the rental perspective? Because if you're trying to do it more from the nuisance, the behavior of the people there, then I would suggest that's what your role should concentrate on. The more you start putting in stuff, like the way out of that room, then it starts to look like you are to get more into the area of overseeing the safety of the actual property. That's where I think you're kind of putting a foot more into more liability. You know what I mean? I mean, if all you had in there were rules about dogs and sound and things like that, then, and your lawyer, tell you, just.
Okay.
But then you could argue, hey, the whole point of the ordinance is basically A, to make sure people get licenses, so you know who they are. B, you're trying to make sure that they don't have renters who are engaging in things that are a problem for the neighbors. But when you start getting into an area like, how do you get out of the bedroom? Then I'm worried that now you're getting into the safety of the actual property. I think those are two total different.
So maybe Ames and I, we look at that, our editor, since the 3 of us can't talk.
Right, I mean, to me, the safety of the property isn't just for somebody who's renting the property. That's sort of for all the properties that are here.
Okay. So noted.
Well, it's kind of like the same thing with the nuisance though. I mean, I'm not gonna pay attention and just because, you know, it could be meals really and having a wild party. So,
So that actually kind of raises the question that I had, is that there are already existing ordinances for the township, for someone like, correct me if I'm wrong, it's fireworks, those kinds of things.
No,
There is
no noise.
No noise. We have a draft one.
traffic. Like, I guess what I'm kind of saying is you could probably point to some of those. Like, they have to comply with.
Well, we drafted a noise ordinance, but it's decibels and who's gonna go out with the machine and who's gonna go Abby, back it down, sister. You watch.
Well,
But I guess
and
my
then
point is like.
the airplanes coming in.
Airplanes coming in.
Yikers, okay.
Okay. I have a question. Is it possible just to start with something smaller and then expand and see how it goes? If a lot of the complaints you're getting the past 14 years are noise and parking and congestion and things, can you start attacking that problem first? And
Just the
see what-
nuisance part of it.
all the things that you had in your inbox and your voicemail that you all have addressed, and then see if that works, and figure out a way to hold the people accountable, and then if it's not working, then broaden your scope. But I think if you start with the main issue, maybe that might curb some things. I also think before, my opinion, this goes into effect, you know, you have rounding 1,800 parcels. How, like, I think it would be a good idea before this starts snowball, actually know how many folks you have to rent properties before you start throwing more, paperwork for them to follow and ordinances, it's like, yeah, how do we find that out? I think you could. You could probably do a lot of.
As I say, that's-
Do a survey.
Wait a minute, Dave's next.
City had voluntary registration before they passed the ordinance. So if you were one of that group, you get fireworks. They came out with 120 lights. Maybe 105 already pre-registered for like.
So that would be the Apple.
Yeah,
type-
it'd be
Yeah,
the
the carrot.
enticement. Okay, good idea.
Thomas next?
I'm just saying, there is a section in the ordinance about going through that.
Is there, okay.
And, rudimentary way of determining it. And just as an aside, on the ordinance, it is better to go in with a tough love ordinance, and relax the ordinance coming out rather than people.
Okay, okay.
Question for you when you talk about liability and that's with issuing a license. Technically you issue a license to somebody as a rental. Now that's considered as a business. Does that change their zoning from residential to commercial because they are now operating a business as a rental? If so, do they have to follow health department, fire department inspections annually? Because of what, why I'm asking, a friend of mine downstate takes care of a couple of properties like I do. And they're putting in zoning things, and in doing so, the city down there, wasn't township, city down there turned around and when they issue your license for a rental, automatically they change the zoning to commercial because it's now a business, not residential. Now you got to follow commercial rules, guidelines, fire safety, you have MIOSHA and stuff. If you're gonna have any food services or anything on premises, you have to have health department inspect, such as septic, bathrooms and stuff.
Tell me if I'm wrong, we don't have anything commercial.
No,
Zone.
well, no, there was a, you know, right over here, there's zone commercial, right up by Dollar General was zone commercial.
Right.
But there are very few areas, all of it is residential.
Right.
And that's part of the objective here. Okay, is the master plan for the township. We have to keep going back to the master plan. Number one issue with the master plan is to maintain the rural sphere, the township and the community. And so the what we're trying to do by limiting the number of licenses. Is to limit. So that you don't have. One of the comments you got is, they said, why can't we have 10 licenses? We don't want you to have 10 licenses because now you are. You're in it as a business, not as a rental.
Right.
Okay, to offset expenses or whatever, okay? And so I think there's clauses in here about the number of leases can be rented. I know,
I don't think so.
but outside of that, if you have to look at your tax liability, because if you rent more than 2 weeks a year,
You lose your principal
your
residence exemption.
residence exemption. Okay, so there already are some limiting factors,
What I'm saying is,
so,
But you're talking two different things, Leroy. You're
Yeah.
talking the property and you're talking the building on the property.
what I'm saying is, you have a house that's zoned residential R1. Now you get a license from the township to lease, rent your short-term rental through Airbnb, whatever you, BOB or whatever. Now you have a license. You are operating a business.
But we do
Do
have
they-
lots of cases like that.
But
Yeah.
do they rezone that house, that
No.
property as commercial as a business now,
No.
or has to follow the commercial guidelines, is what
No.
I'm saying, because that's what they're trying to do downstate.
Now, that would only be, the commercial aspect of all of this is if I came on and I bought my property, my entire intent is to rent it. That's a business.
Okay, well, I know several
But,
right here, Crystal,
you know,
that's what they are.
That's what they're doing. See, because when it comes to the insurance side,
2 weeks.
you know, companies will allow you to have a homeowner policy on your home to your seasonal resident. And they will allow you to rent it up to 180 days.
There's Doug and Mo Hatfield, and 22 rents.
I know, but there's a difference, but
Please.
if the client comes to me and says, no, I'm buying this dwelling to rent it. I do not know the homeowner's policy, and then it's something else. So I think the question is what is their intent? You know, is what is their purpose? Are they buying this property to have it as a rental, which is, we know all around us, that's what they're doing now. Or are they buying it, to have it as your summer residence, as an occasional rental, so that you can afford to live there? You know, for your rent.
I agree.
So it depends on weeks.
Right.
I think your problem there is, you know, what are you really, have no limit the number of weeks, right? And to be able to, for that person with a license. How many weeks you are going to ask them to rent it? Does it matter how many weeks they rent it? You're still going to have a license if they only rent 4 weeks out of the year. Like a lot of the houses around this.
they're going to.
So it's the advertising.
It's the advertising.
You're different. See, that's the other app.
And Leroy, I'm just gonna point out, we have a lot of cottage industries. We've got people that have hair shops in their garage and things like that, and they're still zoned residential.
Yeah.
So it's just because you start a commercial business on your property doesn't
Well,
mean it's.
technically, the state,
So-
my understanding is you're allowed one home-based business before, you know, like you say, art studio or whatever. But like I said, I was talking to Joe downstate, and that's what they're trying to do down there is if you get a license for a rental, for Airbnb, short-term rentals, they're trying to actually make you change even on houses, homes, as put it into commercial, take it out.
And we couldn't do that, just like if you look down South Shore, you wouldn't have this little thing, commercial, and the next one, I mean.
Well, that's what I'm wondering is,
No.
is that going to affect that, where somebody will come back and say, okay, you give them a license, why isn't it done commercial?
It's gonna, we have to get going.
Yep.
My
brain's.
at this point, public, comment, I'm gonna close, and board comment, anybody?
I'm fried.
Everybody cool? What time is it, dear? You're always my watch lady.
7:54. Sorry, there was a spider.
And you flicked it on the. It's 7:54, we're adjourned for the